Damian Lillard and the Portland Trail Blazers are once again out of the NBA playoffs in the first round for the fourth time in the last 5 years, after losing to the Denver Nuggets without their starting backcourt in Jamal Murray and Will Barton in 6 games. Terry Stotts, who's been head coach for all of Damian Lillard's tenure in Portland, has just been fired, but Dame's number one option to replace him was Jason Kidd, who came out and said the other day that he will not be taking over this job in Portland. Don't really blame him. He deserves a head coaching job. As a Lakers fan, I know how good he is. But Portland, maybe Boston's probably a better opportunity for him. But anyway, it won't be Jason Kidd in Portland. Lillard, who will be 31 in July, averaged 29 points per game, 7.5 assists per game in the 1920 season. All MVP caliber stats there, and is well and truly in his prime. As I said, he'll be 31 in July, so this is prime Lillard. He's not going to get much better than this. And in his prime, a player of his talent, Lillard's one of the best in the league. He needs to be kind of contending for championships, and he just hasn't been for the last few years of his career in Portland, really ever. They did make the Western Finals one year in 2019 where they lost to the Warriors, but no one really thought this Blazers team was ever good enough to be real, true contenders. Damian Lillard's last All-Star teammate was LaMarcus Aldridge back in 2015, and after getting eliminated to the Nuggets, he seemed very frustrated, saying that, the messages he was putting out looked like he might want to leave, but seeing that he wanted Jason Kidd, looks like he still wants to give Portland a chance, to make things right. And, it's probably easier for him to stay in Portland as he just signed a new contract with the Blazers last off-season, which only kicks in this season, which runs to the 2024-25 season, where after that he'll be earning $54 million, and that's a player option after the 24-25 season, and he'll be 34, 35, so at that age of your career, it's hard to turn that down. So it looks like contract-wise he probably is locked in to Portland, but if the front office don't get him an all-star caliber teammate this off-season, that probably means breaking up CJ McCollum and him as a backcourt. If he doesn't get some all-star talent around him, a fellow all-star at least, and some other good players around him, he could ask, and also a poor start to next season, I could well and see Dame Lillard ask for a trade out of Portland, kind of what James Harden did out of Houston, realising you're in your prime, this is the year he's meant to be contending, and if they have a slow start to Portland to this season, that's it. So that's how to keep CJ McCollum this off-season. Don't make too many major changes like they do every year really. Bring in a few good role players that look good on paper, and they start next season off slow with a new head coach who Damian Lillard, didn't pick. I don't know who's out there, Chauncey Billups is out there. I think you like him, but let's say something else that Damian Lillard wasn't 100% behind. And they start off slow. I can see him just asking a trade, getting out of Portland for his prime years. Similar what James Harden did out of Houston, as I said. So in this video, we're going to look at 5 potential trade options for Lillard if he does want to get out of Portland anytime soon. Still, as this video is being recorded, I don't see Damian Lillard leaving Portland anytime soon. My money is on him staying there. CJ McCollum get moved on, and they try to rebuild that way. But let's just say, for argument's sake, Lillard says I want out of here, and we're going to look at 5 teams that could potentially, trade for him. Now this first team, listen, 5 teams sounds better than 4 teams. So I have to add in this team. As a Laker fan myself, I have to put the Lakers at number 5. Now, me being realistic and not being a deluded Laker fan, I'm saying there's less than a 1% chance of this happening. The only way Dame Lillard ends up in the purple and gold is if, when he demands a trade, he says, I want to trade for LA, because that's the only way he's going to the Lakers, because the Lakers trade package won't be anywhere near as good as any other teams on this list. But if Lillard has his sights set on playing the Lakers, forming a super team, like going the James Harden route, I call it, forming a super team, almost guaranteeing yourself a ring, if not 2, maybe even 3, alongside LeBron and AD. You're guaranteeing yourself success, deep playoff runs every year, contending every year, everything Lillard would want. It's only going to happen if Lillard says, I want to trade and I only want to go to LA. Chance of this happening about 1%. But we had to put 5 teams in this list. I think there's more of a chance of him going to the Lakers than the Heat, for example. The Heat have cap space. I just don't see I don't see him going to the Heat. Even the Clippers have been rumoured with him. I don't see him going to the Clippers. So I think the Lakers, for 5th place, they'll do in this list. But as I said, the only way Damian Lillard would go to the Lakers is if, he said, I want to trade and I only want to go to LA. Now, what the Lakers could give up? They could give up Dennis Schroeder, KCP, Montrezl Harrell, maybe Taylor Horton-Tucker, and a few future picks. The Lakers actually have a few picks. They got the 22 pick in this year's NBA draft, so they have a few picks still left. So they give up one of those with Dennis Schroeder. Maybe KCP, Montrezl Harrell, Taylor. The Blazers have got to rebuild with this scenario, but it's a decent trade package, but there's better out there. As we saw Dennis Schroeder in the playoffs, he's not great. Trez is a good player to have on your present. Taylor even. Taylor's a good player. He'll be improving as the years go on. So maybe the Blazers might take that if Damian Lillard makes it clear he wants to go to LA. But as I said, I don't see it happening. Number 4, Philadelphia. Now this one depends on how Philly do this playoff run. They're currently tied 1-1 with Atlanta, so wait and see how they do there. But Philly would have to give up Ben Simmons and Tyrese Maxey plus some future picks for this to happen. If Philly come up short this offseason, they might decide to move Ben Simmons on for Dame, because they made Ben Simmons available when James Harden was on the table. They obviously didn't pull it, or Houston didn't want it, but Ben Simmons was available, and I think Ben Simmons with Tyrese Maxey, and a few future picks, and Ben Simmons paired up by CJ McCollum, they'll still make Portland, they're a bit respectable in the West. Ben Simmons is a good young player, and they'll still be not contending, but they'll still be competitive anyway. And as for Dame, he'll be tied up with Joel Embiid, and with Embiid, he could have got MVP this year easily if he wasn't injured. That's a very good matchup for them, and the Eastern Conference is weaker, so I think if Damian Lillard went out to Portland, they'd really be able to rival the Brooklyn Nets. But I still don't see this one happening. I still think there's better trade packages out there, and I don't even know if Philly are willing to give up Ben Simmons. But for number 4, Philly. Number 3, you got the Boston Celtics. Now, for Boston to do this, they'll have to give up Jaylen Brown and maybe Marcus Smart along with some picks. Now, Boston could decide to pull the plug on the Tatum Brown duo after this season didn't end well. Obviously, Brown got injured and missed the playoffs. If Boston are willing to give up Jaylen Brown, Portland would have to deeply consider this. Jaylen Brown's a great young player, two-way player as well, and he'll have a bright future with Jaylen Brown if they can bring some more pieces around him. And of course, then Lillard will be paired up with Jason Tatum, which will make Boston stronger on the offensive end, not so much defensively, but it spices things up for them for sure. And Tatum and Damian Lillard, that's a scary duo for the Eastern Conference. So I wouldn't mind seeing this one happen. See how this one. I'm just interested how this one will work out, Lillard and Tatum. But would Boston be willing to give up Jaylen Brown as part of the deal, or they just try and do a cheat code and give them Kemba Walker? They'll never take Kemba Walker. So wait and see if Boston would make a move for him. At number 2, you got the New York Knicks. Now the Knicks, they got plenty of cap space, so this kind of trade would be easy for them. Not easy, but it's easier for them than the Lakers because they're capped out. The Knicks would have to give up RJ Barrett plus probably Mitchell Robinson and some future picks. The Knicks have plenty of cap space, as I said, this offseason, and they've shown great signs of improvement this past season, making the playoffs for the first time in a good few years. They're competitive once again. A big mark like New York, Dame Lillard going from Portland to New York, that's a massive step up, like market wise, and they'd be instant contenders. You got Julius Randle, who could be your number 3 guy, as he showed in the playoffs. He's not really be number 1 guy, so you've got Julius Randle as your number 3 guy. Lillard could be your number 1 guy, and then you've got cap space for another star. So New York get very, very dangerous if they pull a big trade like this. Even if they have the cap space, as I said, bringing stars this offseason. So watch the Knicks what they do this offseason, because they got the cap space to bring in a few more stars along with Julius Randle. They will have to give up RJ Barrett, who's a good young player, their number 3 pick in the 2019 NBA draft. But it's worth it for this. And as for Portland's side of this, they'll be going to rebuild mode if they accept this trade with RJ Barrett, a young point guard, and probably keeping CJ McCollum, so they won't be very competitive. They're probably going to full rebuild mode. And then the most likely trade package, you could say, well, the best trade package available at the moment anyway, the Golden State Warriors. They got the best trade package for any superstar in the NBA, because they've got Andrew Wiggins, James Wiseman, plus some good picks to give up as well. So the Warriors, as I said, they got the best trade package out there. The Warriors, with giving up Andrew Wiggins, James Wiseman, they'd be happy to do that to extend the dynasty of Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and Steph Curry, and then pairing Steph Curry, Klay Thompson with Damian Lillard. I think it's official. There'd be a third splash, bro, because Damian Lillard and Steph Curry's rivalry over the few years, 3-point shooting wise, this be scary. With Klay Thompson as well, Steph and Dame can shoot from anywhere past half court, so you're pretty much in danger. This will bring the Warriors right back to where they were with KD, in heavy contention in the Western Conference. And I wouldn't like to see this one. I've seen enough of the Warriors dominate the West, but they do the best trade package available, so maybe they could pull this trade off. But as for Portland, they were going to rebuild mode. Andrew Wiggins has showed he's still not that guy yet. James Wiseman got a lot of potential, but he's only a rookie. going into a second year, and then some picks as well in the same position, you know. But as I said, I think this is the best trade package out of all of them. So overall, it all depends what Damian Lillard wants. If Damian Lillard is happy in Portland, he'll never get moved on. The Blazers will happily keep him there for the rest of his career. If he gets frustrated in Portland and decides, you know, as I said, the James Harden route, and he wants to contend in his prime years, then he can demand a trade out of there and go to any of these teams. If he has his mindset on one team, he'll say, I'm going to that team only, and Portland probably has to do it, you know. As I said, I wouldn't say I do have the best trade package available, but, you know, New York have got the cap space, so it'd be interesting to see if this even happens, you know. Personally, at this moment in time, I don't see it happening, but you never know, strange things have happened. And on Portland's side, now might be the time to move him on if he's unhappy, because like Houston, you're never going to get a bigger haul in than now, because this is prime Damian Lillard. That was prime James Harden Houston let go of. Maybe now is the time, you know, to get as much as you can back for Lillard and rebuild. So who knows, let's see what Portland do. But anyway guys, that's the video. Where do you think Damian Lillard will end up? Do you even think he'll end up leaving Portland at any stage over the next year or two? Me personally, not really, but it's interesting to see who could be potentially out there if he does ask to leave. Anyway guys, that's the video. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like the video, subscribe if you're new, and turn on notifications, stay notified. And with all that said, I'm out of here.